Greece is a modern country with very deep traditions. In the wine world, one tradition has been around since antiquity, Retsina. This resinated wine has evolved over the centuries and has been revisited by contemporary winemakers who have given it a more modern taste. I'll cook grilled shrimp with Retsina. They look really juicy. Skordalia, a garlicky dip with potatoes and walnuts. Beet salad with garlic. And batter-fried cod for the skordalia. You want them to be nice and crisp on the outside. Join me on my Greek table as I explore the history, techniques, and versatility of this unique wine and pair it with some of my most beloved Greek dishes. Necessity is the mother of invention. So it goes with what is arguably Greece's most famous and one of its most misunderstood wines, Retsina, a white or a rosé wine flavored with pine resin. Retsina is one of two officially designated traditional wines in Greece. It was born in ancient Greece when the most common way to store anything, from olive oil to wheat to wine, was in large clay amphora or jugs. It didn't take long to discover that wine shipped or stored in these earthenware containers went bad quickly because clay is porous and the wine oxidized. The thick resin from the plentiful Aleppo pine trees was discovered to be a perfect sealant. But by the 3rd century AD, the Romans had invented the wooden barrel, which even today stores wine best and which the Greeks adopted too. But they had grown fond of the piney resin in their wine and began adding it not to prevent oxidation, but as an aroma. And so it is that the tradition invented thousands of years ago is still alive today. Retsina, once maligned for its overtly rustic flavor, sometimes compared to turpentine, is now enjoying a renaissance. Because of its robust flavor, it is still considered by many to be the best wine to pair with the varied array of mezedes that are such a big part of the Greek table. Just south of Athens lies the Kouvara pine forest, where the Aleppo pine trees carpet the hilly landscape. I am meeting winemakers Ioannis and his son Charilaos. In his mid-80s, Ioannis has been tapping trees and collecting resin for 60 years. He is one of a small group of traditional vintners who still tap the local pines.
Ωραία. Ξεκίνησε.
Δεν είναι εύκολο αυτό,
Είναι λίγο δύσκολο, είναι λίγο περαστικό.
Πόσο μεγάλη είναι η τομή?
Περίπου 10 με 15 πόντους.
Από αυτή την τομή...
Θα αρχίσει σιγά σιγά να στάζει τώρα.
Σε πόσες μέρες?
Στο αργότερο σε 1 ώρα θα αρχίσει να δακρύσει.
Σιγά σιγά. Αυτό το πεύκο εδώ πόσο ετών είναι?
300 ετών.
Είναι 300 ετών, wow. Πώς ξέρεις πού να κάνεις την τομή, δηλαδή έχει σημείο, βλέπεις, καταλαβαίνεις που τρέχει το ρετσίνι.
Έτσι ακριβώς βλέπουμε την κλίση που έχει ο πεύκος.
Δηλαδή, η κλίση είναι...
Έτσι, βλέπετε, όπως έχει την κλίση έτσι και θα τρέξει, βλέπετε.
Ναι.
Πώς πάει.
Ναι. A tin is installed just below the cut to catch the slowly flowing resin. After a week, the resin is collected.
Εδώ βλέπετε τώρα, μετά την πάροδο 7-8 ημερών, πώς τρέχει η ρητίνη και πώς συλλέγεται μέσα στο ειδικό αυτό κουτί.
Αν το πιάσω...
Αν το πιάσετε, θα κολλήσει στα χέρια σας και μην το κάνετε, γιατί πρέπει να έχετε ενόπνευμα μετά για να...
μάλιστα, οκ. The resin from the tins is transferred into a box. Any that has hardened is scraped out. A single tree can produce around 15 pounds of resin in a single year. They reserve some of the resin for their own Retsina production, but most is sold to commercial wineries in the area. I'm making a really easy shrimp dish that calls for Retsina as an ingredient. In the Greek kitchen, we usually like to cook our shrimp with the shells on. The only thing you want to do is slice open the top a little bit and pull out the intestine. It makes them a little bit easier to eat. I'll start by making my marinade. A little bit of black pepper, whole black peppercorns, some whole coriander seeds, and a little bit of garlic. I like to crush it first in a garlic crusher. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with. I'm gonna grind it up to a nice paste. A little bit of salt. I just got a whiff of the black pepper. It smells great. I like to use a mortar and pestle when I make my spice rub because the flavors of the coriander and pepper are released really gently that way. Okay. I'm gonna make my marinade right in here and add my shrimp and leave them to absorb all those great juices for about a half hour. I'm gonna add my spice mix to the pan, a little bit of lemon zest. That smells so fresh, so refreshing. Lemon and coriander, lemon and pepper, lemon and retsina, those are all things that go really well together. A little bit of lemon juice. A little bit of that light retsina. And you basically just want to whisk this all together for the flavors to blend. I'm gonna get my shrimp in here. I'm gonna let these marinate in the fridge for about a half hour, and then I'm gonna finish them off on the grill. I'm almost ready to put the shrimp in the grill pan, just a little bit of olive oil. The pan is nice and hot. I'm just gonna get these right into the grill pan. You want to use fresh shrimp for this, large ones if you can. These are U10s, nice and big, nice and meaty. These are just going to cook for a few minutes, and then I'm going to turn them over to the other side. These are ready to serve. They smell really good, and they look really juicy. Little bit of lemon for some color, just in the corner here. Don't be afraid to use your hands. That is so succulent. The retsina is really subtle. The lemon perks everything up. The coriander and the pepper add a little bit of exotic, spice to this. This is delicious. Do not be afraid to use your hands. Enjoy your Greek shrimp with retsina. Classic retsina is made just like any white wine, from pressing to fermentation in steel tanks. The only difference is that a small amount of pine resin, specifically from the Aleppo pine, is added at the start of fermentation. It is produced in Attica, Viotia, and Evia, mainly from the region's local Savatiano and Rhoditis grape varietals. There is also a rosé retsina called Coccinelli, made with either the Rhoditis grape or more recently with Xinomavro or Assyrtiko. One of the most classic foods for retsina is skordalia, the Greek garlic sauce. I've got my potatoes here, nice and hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of bread. You wanna dampen that first, that's really important. This is all gonna get pounded in the mortar with my pestle. Squeeze out as much moisture as you can from the bread. I like to break it up a little bit. And I like to use pita bread in this because it's nice and soft and it gives the final skordalia a really nice consistency. I always start with the garlic in this dish. I'm gonna start with 2 cloves. I sometimes pulverize up to 6 or 7. Depends on who I'm having for company. And the whole idea is to get a paste out of this. To move that along, I need a little salt. The salt helps soften the garlic and of course adds great flavor. There are a lot of different versions of skordalia all over Greece. I'm calling for potatoes and bread. Most people make it either with bread or potatoes, but I have found over the years that that combination actually makes it fluffier. Some walnuts go in next. Next, the soaked bread. A little bit of olive oil. This is basically an emulsion, so I'm alternating between olive oil, acid, in this case vinegar, and I always have a little bit of hot fish stock or vegetable stock on hand to help loosen the skordalia. It should be thick, but it shouldn't be really, really dense. Time to add a little bit of potato. You have to do this in increments. The whole idea is to make as smooth an emulsion as possible. I'm adding a little bit of fish broth, 1 more garlic clove. You want to make sure every single one of your guests has some of this because obviously there's a lot of garlic in it. So you want everyone to be kind of on an equal playing field. A little bit more potato. Greeks love skordalia so much, there's even a song about it, one of the great Rebettika songs, sort of like the Greek blues, where the lover is telling his beloved he loves her so much, he's gonna make her fried fish, skordalia, and beets. Θα σου τηγανίσω ψάρια και παντζάρια σκορδαλιά. Now, I don't know how that date ended up. A little more hot broth. The potatoes and the broth have to be hot. The potatoes will absorb the liquid much better if they're hot. A little bit of vinegar. You can also do lemon juice in here. I like the earthiness of the vinegar more. It goes really well with the walnuts. Skordalia is the perfect accompaniment for all those crispy fried vegetables you've probably had in a Greek restaurant somewhere along the line. It's also great with boiled vegetable salads, and the classic is beets. And of course with codfish. Tiny bit more broth. So this is one of those recipes where you actually do have to be totally present when you're making it because you need to sort of eyeball it. Do you need more potato? Do you need more bread? Do you need more liquid? Let me just get a little taste of this. That's great, but I'm not going on a hot date tonight, that's for sure. There's a lot of garlic in here. It is really good. The skordalia is ready, and up next, I'm gonna make you beets and fried cod to go with this. Bacalharo skordalia. I'm making beetroot salad, one of the great accompaniments to Greek skordalia. Just adding a little salt to my boiling water here. Just grabbing my beets. They take a lot longer to cook than the greens. This is one of the many, many boiled vegetable salads in the Greek kitchen. Zucchini, potatoes, carrots, cauliflower, broccoli. All of those vegetables are wonderful boiled. Beets, though, are the king. We always use the greens. Remember, one of the most important tenets of Greek cooking, of all Mediterranean cooking, is that nothing goes to waste. Just adding a little bit of salt to my pot for the greens. I think most cooks in the States are used to blanching their vegetables or blanching their greens. We don't do it like that in Greece. We like our vegetables soft and comforting. Beet greens are some of the most common greens we have in the Greek kitchen. When you go to the farmers markets in Greece, they sell the bulb, the root, and the actual green together. We always leave the lid ajar, and that's just something I learned from my grandmother. That keeps the color of the greens intact. The beet greens take a lot less time to cook than the actual roots, about 15 to 20 minutes. My beets are cooled down, and I'm ready to finish the salad. So I always start with a little garlic. This is a high garlic episode. Right into the mixing bowl. And just to keep my hands from turning beet red, I'm gonna put on some kitchen gloves. The skins are gonna peel right off. They slip off pretty easily, but sometimes you need a little bit of help with a paring knife. Last one. I like to use Greek balsamic in my beet salad. I like the sweet acidity that balsamic lends to the natural sweetness of the beets. A little bit of olive oil, and you really want to lubricate these beets beautifully with the olive oil. Salt. And you can just toss them with your hands. It smells great. You definitely want to wear gloves when you do this because your hands will end up being red for a few days. I want to get all that beautiful beet juice right over this. Whatever garlic slices are left. Oh, that looks gorgeous. I love this salad. I have been liberated from these rubber gloves. And now I will plate the beet greens. I like to dress these really simply. Just a little bit of salt, olive oil, and red wine vinegar. I like actually the tartness of the red wine vinegar. It's more sour than the balsamic, and it works really beautifully with the subtleness in the flavor of the beet greens. Olive oil. These look almost like, it's like the color of gems. A little bit of red wine vinegar, just sprinkled on top. And a little bit of Greek salt. Beautiful. This could easily stand on its own as a boiled salad any night of the week. But when you marry it with that garlicky skordalia and beautiful crisp cod fritters coming up next, you'll understand why this is a timeless tradition. I went fishing at my local market, and I came back with a lot of salt cod, one of the all-time Greek favorite fish. This is a piece of dried salt cod fillet packed in coarse salt. It was basically a way to preserve the fish. You have to desalt it and rehydrate it before you use it. So here it is soaking in water. It's been in the water for a couple of days. You want to change that water every couple of hours. You want to cut it into smaller pieces and take off the skin. The smaller pieces make it a little more manageable. I boiled the cleaned, skinned, desalted salt cod for a couple of minutes, like 5 or 7 minutes, basically just to soften it up a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is just shred the poached cod a little bit. See how easily it comes apart? It might seem a little ironic that cod is such a popular fish in Greece. It's not a native of the Mediterranean or the Aegean. It's a cold water fish. For a long time, salt cod was called mountain fish because it used to be sold by itinerant merchants in villages far from the coast. This is beautiful. Done. The first thing that goes into this is a slightly beaten egg. The egg is the binder. It's what will hold the croquettes together. My onion next. A little parsley. Baking soda, which makes the croquettes really fluffy. And I'm just gonna mix that all together. You wanna do this carefully. Let me just taste a little bit of this to see if it needs any salt, and it doesn't, but it does need a little pepper. Next, flour, just enough to hold this together. So I'll start with about half of this, mix it all together. The mixture ends up being quite sticky, which is okay. That's exactly what we want. Sometimes you just have to get in there with your hands. Let's see if that's holding together. That's beautiful. Exactly what we want. We want the croquettes to hold together, keep their shape. I like to make the fritters on the small side, and I shape them into little oblong croquettes. You want to make sure they're all about the same size so that they fry up evenly. Whenever you're frying something, especially croquettes, you want to make sure the oil is nice and hot. You could just use a little piece of bread, and as soon as it sizzles up like that, you know your oil is hot enough to fry up the croquettes. One at a time into the frying pan carefully. You don't want to crowd the frying pan because you don't want the temperature of the oil to drop. That will make the croquettes greasy. You want them to be nice and crisp on the outside. These only take a couple of minutes aside. Yeah, that is beautiful. Perfect. Look at that beautiful golden color. I'm just gonna finish frying these. They're almost done. And then I'm going to enjoy them with that beautiful skordalia and my glistening beets. There's always time to stop and smell the garlic, especially when it's in a plate as delicious as this. I can't wait to try this. My cod keftedes. They're so light, not at all salty, just really well seasoned. They have that beautiful herbaceousness from all that parsley. Let me try my beet greens here. I love the tartness of the red wine vinegar on this. It really brings these greens to life. And I can't help but want to save my skordalia for last with a tiny little bit of beet and of course bread. We eat everything with bread. That is not for the faint of heart. Wow. It's so earthy. The walnuts give it that earthiness and crunch. The olive oil makes it really smooth and gratifying. The potatoes and the bread make it very comforting. And that beautiful sweet acidity of the balsamic ties everything together. For something this robust and garlicky, it's incredibly satisfying. Those flavors are so pungent. That's why cod, skordalia, beets with garlic, and my beautiful greens go really well with a wine that can stand up to them. A nice, light, chilled Retsina. If you've ever wondered what to pair with pine-scented Retsina, this is pretty much it. All sorts of different things. Sweet beetroot, garlicky skordalia, crisp cod fritters, mild beet greens. All of these disparate flavors and textures come together because of the uniqueness of this traditional Greek wine, isi hian.